Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spoken Voices. We're glad you can join us again today. And like always, we hope that everybody is fine, everybody is doing good, everybody's taking care of one another and looking out for one another. This is the second show that we have with Leah Joy Pearson. And today, we're going to still have a discussion, but she's going to perform for us. So, without further ado, let me introduce again Leah Joy Pearson.
Mayarose.
Mayarose.
Yeah.
Oh, let me get this right. Mayarose is her stage name. So today it's Mayarose.
Right now it's Mayarose. Exactly.
Mayarose.
I'll switch back and forth.
We'll switch back and forth.
Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that.
Dual personality.
I'm going to call you a lot of things. I'm going to call you straight out of your name.
Anything.
Right.
No, it's straight out of my name. Go for it.
So how you doing today?
Good.
Again,
very good.
So you ready to do some stuff for us?
I am. I'm excited
You
to
know?
share.
So without further ado,
Okay.
hit us with the first one. Is it named? Do you
Yep.
have a name for it?
This is called The Middle Place.
Okay.
So see if you can pick up why it's called The Middle Place.
Okay.
So you can think, y'all got to pay attention. It's not going to be that hard. All right. The middle place, in which the black on my face covers up the white genes I carry within. Unable to fully embrace the shame that is our history. Black girl trapped in a white girl's body, dancing off beat to the music. Unsettled identity found in a box of relaxer and a Debbie Gibson song. I give props to Mariah in a language that I am not supposed to use, the slang of which dangles suffocating my outward appearance. A shell of myself that I am obligated to pay tribute to in a mode of composure that keeps our reputation in good standing. Public view weighs solely on my ability to act right. However, my whiteness gives me a free pass, a waiver for things like sports, spelling, and oppression. Though the Cherokee whisper from our native bloods transcends this segregation with a gentle wisdom from above.
All right. All right. Now you know, every time you do one, I'm going to ask you, what was your inspiration to write that?
Excellent. Well, this was, and I did leave out a couple lines. They were good ones too. So you'll just have to come see me perform.
Okay. Yeah. Don't give us everything.
Yeah, I won't give you everything at once.
Tease
And
us.
I meant to do that.
Yeah. Tease us a little bit.
Yeah. So this was because I'm mixed race.
Okay.
My mom's white and my dad's black.
Okay.
And growing up, I hated when people would ask me, like, what is that like? Because I had an identity crisis. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to draw any attention to it. So finally, I'm like, whenever I don't want to deal with anything, I'm like, I'll just write a poem about it. And they can figure it out.
Okay.
So that was that inspiration to kind of talk to some of the things that, we deal with when you're kind of like, you're not quite black, you're not quite white.
Right.
And I grew up in a suburban neighborhood. So it was like I listened to, like I said, Debbie Gibson and, and kind of teeny bopper music.
Okay.
But yet people sort of wanted me to like show up as like Ice-T, dating myself, and kind of in that sort of like mode. And I just couldn't get there. And Mariah Carey is my favorite artist.
Right.
And I love because she talks a lot in her lyrics about, the outside, being on the outside,
of
not
course.
quite fitting in. And she sort of like had to deal with the same struggles on a higher scale, obviously, like being able to kind of add some hip hop and some slang and stuff like that into her music, and people didn't quite want to take to it because it was too ghetto and she was too pretty.
Yep.
And so I kind of was in this sort of box of like, I can't do anything that is remotely black-like.
Okay.
Because then that ruins the image. But at the same time, you can't escape it. And as a black person, it's in our genes, it's in our roots. We kind of long for this sort of, the line I left out was about like the grand falloon of like collard greens and God Almighty. I wanted desperately to be able to fit in with that sort of choir, but was never quite allowed because of this sort of like illusion of whiteness around me.
Did you find growing up that it was basically a tug of war between both?
Yeah.
Right? Because I always hear well, I didn't hear, I experienced myself. So, you know, let's be honest, right? I experienced myself. Did you feel that people were telling you you weren't black enough?
Yes. Yeah.
And because of your pigmentation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's no way you could be,
Right.
you know, white.
Right.
You know,
Right.
did you feel that tug of war?
Yeah.
How about you personally? I mean, what did you? I mean, at some point did you ask yourself, why do I have to identify with anything? I'm a human being.
Yeah, it was very difficult. And people think it's, you know, they're like, oh, let's break out the little violin.
The little violin, right?
But I'm like, you don't understand. It really was a huge identity crisis for me because I really identified as white.
Okay.
You know, I saw myself as white, and I couldn't quite understand why I couldn't measure up on both ends. Like I couldn't. You know, I was sort of like treated as if I should act white and be white, but it wasn't quite included.
Right.
You know, but when I acted black, it was like, you're acting black. And so it was this catch-22 constantly. And I mean, I ran from it. Like,
Right.
I really did not want to see myself as black growing up because I grew up in an all-white neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was not a pleasant thing to be. And you know, and being of white and black, you know, my mom kind of had this like idea in her head that you can't choose one because you deny, you know, you choose one, you deny the other.
Right.
And, you know, when you're in high school and your mom's kind of like raising hell with the office about, well, we're not going to check that box.
Right.
All I wanted to do is slink away and be like, oh boy, can't I just be white? Why can't I just be white?
Because back in the day, we didn't have the option of saying
well, we did have other, but mixed race.
Mixed race.
Yeah.
Because I'm just beginning to see it now. I know my great-great-grandfather was white, and my mother was Native American, and then there's something on my father's side. And we were raised in a household where I think fortunate for me and my older brother and sister, certain things wasn't pounded in our head. Only thing that was pounded in our head, go out here, be a good person. Be a good person. You know, the human aspect of it overweighed anything else.
Yeah.
Because I always figured you shouldn't have to pick a side.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because you're a product of both sides. And
Right.
you're going to alienate one parent
Yeah.
if you do that.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to alienate
Yeah.
that person.
And it's a real thing. It's a real weight when you're young.
Of course.
On your shoulders.
Of course.
It's
So
confusing. You're like, what?
how was the relationship with you and your mother and dad?
Well, as a child or
Yeah,
no.
just periodic, you know, yeah, different,
periodically
yeah,
changes.
Right.
Obviously, as a child, like, you know, they were my everything. Like,
Yes.
I thought they walked on water. You know, so I was kind of like a little minion, like, you know, begging for approval.
Right, of course,
know?
like any other child.
Yeah, and then as an adult, you know, when I realized, like, you know, coming from a very dysfunctional family, and the veil lifts, and you realize, like, oh, these people I'm worshiping really, like, don't have my best interest in mind. They don't really care that much about me outside of what, and this is very generational, like, you know, what are you going to produce in your life? How are
Right.
you going to bring pride to the family?
Right.
Then it kind of started shifting a bit as to like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not as tight-knit with my parents as I thought I was, which is a different kind of culture shock that I think most of us go through when we see our parents as real people, not
Right.
as superheroes.
So, I mean, do you still, you guys, has it gotten any better?
No.
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 Was it because of what you chose to do, the theatrical part of your life, or
No,
did they want you to do
surprisingly.
something else?
No, surprisingly, because I come from a family of creatives.
Okay.
You know, my dad is a musician and trumpet player. My brother, both my brothers are musicians. My sister's a musician. My mom's done some writing.
Okay.
So a very creative, heavy family. But I'm gonna say it's I'm blaming it all on generational.
Okay.
You know, of that, they're of the silent generation.
Yeah.
They're in their 70s.
Okay.
Where like child rearing was really more about raising the youth to validate the parents giving up their spoils of what type of dream life they were supposed to have. Yeah, the sacrifice. You know, so it was kind of like there was less, I think, innate pride and worthiness into, wow, you're creating something from the heart. You're special. It's like, oh, you're creating something. Well, what are you going to do with it, and where are you going to go with
Right.
it? So a lot of that pressure, almost kind of like, like dance moms. I never saw it, but I heard about it. Like, kind of a version of like
I've heard about
dance
it too.
moms, stage moms, of the constantly packing
Athletic, because I remember taking my son to his games and sitting in the bleachers and seeing fathers lose their mind, and I can be very aggressive when it comes to someone yelling at someone else's kid, especially if you're yelling at my kid. And I'm telling my kid to go out there and do the best you can, because this is not the end all of life.
Right.
And this guy is thinking, oh, NFL, or the NBA, and I'm going like, probably not. But and he's yelling at every kid on the team. I've had confrontations with parents like that. You know, and it's really crazy. Where do you fall in the children?
I'm middle.
Okay.
So I have 2 older brothers and a
That's a
younger
problem
sister.
right there.
I know. And the thing is, like, I was never the star of the family. Like, it was like, because I followed theater and acting and not music.
Okay.
So kind of the spotlight wasn't really on me. I was sort of the invisible, like, little person that, oh, that's a hobby, sweet. Even though I went out to New York and went to LA and I was pounding the pavement, they had no clue what I was doing. They just
Did they ask though? I mean, didn't they ask where you going?
Well, it was more again, this certain stage parents and that generation. They asking more as like, okay, well, what is going to come of it?
Right.
What money are you going to get from it? Who are you going to get to know? So it was never like a conversation we're having. Like, whoa, what inspires you? Why? What? What are you passionate about? It's just like, okay, you're doing that. It's basically go do it, come back when you have a paycheck.
Right.
Type of situation. So
it's really crazy to hear that for me, because I've heard so many stories from the people I've met, especially women, girls, that had the opportunity. I had the opportunity because I'm a dad, and that's my thing. I always tell my kids, I said, if you can say to me at the end of the day when my time is no longer, and if y'all say he was a good dad, he was a good father, I'm beautiful. Good.
That's beautiful.
I don't need anything else. Or no, he bought me a Corvette. No, I don't need to hear that. Or he was a good father. If everybody could say that about me, I'm fine with it, because I always say that no expectations should be put on a child, right?
Yeah.
Because I've yet to find a child who said, "Excuse me, have sex and have me, please." We have no choice in the matter. We're just born.
Right.
I have a problem, and I want you to kind of expand on this, with fathers and daughters.
Yeah.
We are the first person that you will love, the first man that you will ever love, right? How is your relationship with your dad?
Very, and this is another thing of within my family and within, again, a certain generation, it's like the girls really need to be providing more of a role for the family, whereas the ambition is placed on the boys. So the boys were expected to be able to deliver out in the world, and whatever they do is legitimate, where the girls are, like, my job in the house was to cook and to clean and try not to piss my mom off and make sure my dad was happy. Right. So, and I didn't realize it until an adult, very recently, that my dad did not have much affection for me, really, outside of, like I even asked him, I'm like, do you even like me? And he kind of hesitated. I'm like, that's a no. He's like, well, a child. And he went into kind of a dissertation that I probably heard at 12 years old about children this side. I'm like, I'm 40-something years old, no child. But he just is in that box, and it was so drilled into his head.
Even now?
Even now, yes. He kind of has this, and they're older. Older parents.
You said they're 70 something.
They're in their
right?
70s,
Okay.
so it was really of that mindset of that children are to be seen and to bring pride to the family, and that's it.
Okay.
And my dad never quite was able to crack through that shell.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I prodded him, I tried, I showed
Yeah.
up as the perfect daughter, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what can I do for you, Dad? Let's spend time together.
Yeah.
Until I started getting exhausted, because I'm like,
Right.
I'm not really getting anything back, and I'm getting the feeling my dad don't really like me that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, especially with COVID, I was like, I'm just stripping down, getting real.
Mm-hmm.
Getting real. I'm like,
Right. Oh, no
like
doubt.
I asked, if I'm dating someone, I'm asking them, I'm all up in their grill, like,
Right.
what is this
Right.
about? So I just asked him straight out, I'm like, do you even like me? And I was just kind of like, when did you stop believing in me?
What was his reply to that, though?
He just kind of went into that sort of a parent and children, like kind of the catchphrases that, from the 70s of like, well, a child's place and blah, 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 blah.
We talked about that with, I cannot think of the person who wrote Fences, and I'm crazy.
Jean Genet?
I can't
I think
remember.
it's Jean Genet.
If you remember the line that he was talking to his son, do I feed you? Right? Do I put a roof over your head? Then,
Yeah.
I don't have to love you.
That's it. Yep.
How did that, as far as your growth, because my thing is always, if you don't prepare your children to go out, especially my daughter, right, our daughter, if I don't prepare her to go out, she becomes a victim at some point. How did that, the relationship with your dad, how did that prepare you, or how did it hinder you, or did it hinder you from reaching what you do now?
Yeah.
Did it kind of hold you back, or are you always looking for someone else to go, you're good enough?
Right. That's where it hinders. I think where it hindered me in my career is that I would enter through the door already feeling like I wasn't going to measure up, that I was going to be rejected, and that no one was going to take me seriously. So that's kind of like the cloud, the cloak that I constantly have to keep, checking at the door. And it's a lifetime process, because if you don't get that from your core family, your parents, and I didn't even know I didn't have it until everything in my life was spinning out of control.
Right.
None of my relationships worked, and I kept showing up to relationships in my life as if they were my parents. Can I cook for you? Can I clean for you? What can I do to make myself just able to be able to have the right to breathe? So that's how it's hindered me. How it helped me grow is it gave me so much more empathy for struggle.
Right.
Because when I was back in denial and just thinking, oh no, it's a defect within me, if I would hear other people's story of dysfunctional families or not getting along with their siblings, I would automatically assume, well, you're just not, you're not focused enough, you're not disciplined enough, you're not, taking your life seriously. I thought it was a breakdown in the ability to show up for life, rather than, oh, wait a minute, this is a wound. This is a wound that needs to be cared for and tended to.
Right.
Until I really got clear about where my wounds came from, not from me, from this rearing, it allowed me to have compassion for myself.
Right.
Then it's like it opened up a whole world of people that I probably would have kept at arm's length.
Right.
And wouldn't have gotten that shared experience of overcoming and sorrow and all that stuff that helps you feel like you're not so alone in the world.
Right.
So that's how it's helped me grow.
Do you, and I know the answer to this, but you're probably going to tell me anyway, right? Do you feel the need to help other women at this point overcome what you had to deal with?
Yes, in a way. I mean, I'm really kind of refocusing myself into helping myself heal those wounds.
You have to.
And sharing my story be the thing that inspires people to have a bigger conversation.
There you go.
The reason I make that distinction because, before, with the disease to please and all of that sort of needing outside validation, it was like I was on a mission to turn my pain into, mentoring the crap out of people.
Yeah.
And it became another sort of rat race to prove that I was worthy. So I kind of took it a step back and I'm like, well, wait a minute, the words themselves, my story themselves, everything I've experienced myself is going to be the ethers that's going to get somebody who also is experiencing it to gravitate towards me for that shared sort of aha moments, the shared inspiration, the shared camaraderie, connection. So it's the same thing, but it's I'm less activated about it.
Yeah.
It's not like my mission.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. I can tell it is,
Yeah.
but it's something that you're not putting into the forefront, and you're not making it like a badge of honor or whatever to do.
I'm not making it my uniform of like, this is the only way I'm going to get legitimacy in the world.
Exactly.
Other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to do another one of your poems, please?
Yeah. Definitely.
All right.
Okay. Take my glasses
Okay.
off. Yes, sir. A no good thug. A colored boy mulatto, not raised right, disrespecting the law. A criminal at the core of his DNA, Negro. Strip him down of all his humanity, revoke his right to vote, and set him off to fight the fires of the white wealthy for chimp change. But no, not about race. Miseducate him and leave him to fend for himself among the chaos that is his history. We all done deserve what comes to us if we don't keep our nose clean. Concrete wallpaper and liquor store hallways are no excuse. Pull yourself up, ingrate. I did it. I got by. No one paved the way for me. Slavery has nothing to do with the politeness I choose to put in my voice. Bus boycotts and water hose beatings did not touch my college fund. Crack, heroin, deadbeat dads, and single moms has nothing to do with my inheritance of love. My suburban security and ambition has no bearing on your decision to act a fool. Pull your pants up and speak to me proper, boy. A knee on the neck helps the heart of this civilization. Make peace on the dead souls of your ancestors.
I'm feeling it. I feel that. What was the name of that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Inspiration. How'd you get that?
Interesting enough that we were talking about my dad. So when I first wrote it, again, I was sort of like in this identity sort of bubble, and a lot of the wound, I didn't really grapple with the wounds that I experienced from my family until much later, rereading a lot of my poems.
Right.
But when I wrote it, I kind of went at it more as sort of the universal story of what's going on in the world and Black life.
Right.
But I realized that a lot of those quotes in it was literally my dad. And that's the way he treated me and everything. If I cried or I had a weakness or a complaint or anything that was going wrong in my life, it was like, pull yourself up and great. I gave you food, I gave you a roof. So it was a weaving of that. It was a weaving of three things. The weaving of sort of how white people and suburban Blacks take for granted the amount of universal forces going against Black communities.
Right.
Taking it for granted so much. Like, oh, you just, move on out of the ghetto, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it was that mixed in with, my kind of like bird's eye like observation of it and pulling stuff out of what's happening in pop culture to kind of send a message.
Right.
And then packed in with the voices in my head of like literally what my dad sounds like, not against other Black people, but but I think this is sort of the universal problem underlying all racial issues is superiority and a lack of empathy for other people's struggles. So you could be Black, white, anywhere in between. But if you have this idea of your suffering is not my suffering, therefore your suffering is wrong, and you're being weak, that you can add money to it, you can add racial, you can add sexual identity, you can pack anything in to make an excuse for it. But it's that mentality that somehow because I got it together through the trenches that don't let me see a tear. Don't you dare complain. And so it was really all three of those.
I really think that, and we've gotten to the point now where we as people of color, we don't have the ability to complain.
Yeah.
Because, and we're not even, and sometimes you're not even complaining.
Right.
You're pointing out.
Matter of fact.
Right, matter of factly.
Yeah.
what is causing certain things to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a point where sometimes we're told, you know, that was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 300 years ago.
Yeah.
We're the only group of people that can say, besides the natives, Native Americans. You know, they're like, you know, we conquered you.
Right.
You know, deal with it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But
it's like, that's done. We're not even talking about that.
So now I always feel that I don't even want, when I talk to my kids, right, I let them know. Because I said, you know, when they were small, find out your history. Because if you don't, you're doomed to repeat it. So you basically find out your history, and then I'm going to tell you something. I don't want you complaining about anything. I want you to overcome. You know, I'm not going to beat you over the head with it, but I want you to overcome, and I'm going to tell you how I did it.
Right.
You know, I'm going to teach you. This is a teachable moment,
I'm gonna
right?
lay down the bricks for you, so your path you can walk a little bit easier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As opposed to beating you over the head if you don't get it, because all the kids will tell us that I talk too much. But I'm sorry, but I guarantee you, if I talk too much, you're going to remember everything that I said and whatnot.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time so we could do something else. But would you believe we're a half hour?
Time flies when you're having fun.
I gotta have you back on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
At some point, we gotta go. I love talking to you. To me, I just feel that it's something that, you know, it's a situation where two people talking about stuff and people listening to it. Hopefully, it gives them an idea of how to make life a little easier.
Make it a little easier, and like, you know, in whatever way works for you. But if you can channel it into writing and creating some sort of creative piece out of it, I think that is the greatest healing. Of course, I'm partial because that's what I do.
Of course.
But it not only does it transmute it for yourself, then again, it makes the conversation less about the thing and about what blossomed from it.
Yep. Look in the camera. Tell them where you perform.
I perform at the Woodbury Brewing Company every Monday night. And if you go on YouTube, Mayarose-Spokenword, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and see all the places I performed. And my book, and I have one more thing to plug, and that's my WordPress site. So if you want to see some of my other writings, it spans subjects. That is LeahJoyP.com. No scamming, but I do talk about scammers in it.
All right. Oh, love this conversation. Loved it.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Once again, I found the camera. Once again, as we always say, man makes plans, God smiles. Please take care of yourselves. Have a good one, and please join us again on Spoken Voices.